High chances that you might have seen this plant or many colors in this plant variety recently in any garden center or even in any local supermarket. The plant is none other than mum plant or chrysanthemum plant, and I'm pretty sure that you might have seen this because whenever Mother's Day is at the corner, everybody just starts selling this plant because we definitely just give this plant to our mothers whenever it is Mother's Day. Now you have brought this plant. Let us see what can be done so that we can maintain it properly and we can have the flowers blooming forever after. Let's get started. The first thing that we need to make sure is whenever you will buy this plant from anywhere, they will be in those fancy pots or gift wraps. The first thing we have to do is we have to repot them and we have to shift them in a little larger pot with a lot of good soil, because the pot that you buy this plant in, it is a very small pot and it is not enough for the plant to grow and to have a lot of flowers. So that is the first step that we have to do. Also in the small pots, when you remove it, the plant, when you remove it, you will see that the plant, you can see the roots everywhere. That means it's root bound. So you have to definitely shift it to a bigger pot. Second step is, now that we are shifting it to another pot, we need a very good soil. Now if you are planting this in ground, it is easy. You have to just use a little compost along with your normal garden soil. But most of us, we plant such plants in pots. So what we have to do is we have to select a pot with a lot of holes and we need to use a well-drained soil. The soil has to be loose and porous. At the same time, it needs a lot of nutrients. So what you can do is you can have 50% of garden soil and remaining 50% you can add a lot of compost. You can also add things like bone meal if you want, or horse manure, cow manure, any such manure. The reason we have to understand is this plant blooms heavily and loves to bloom a lot. So when we need a lot of flowers in any plant, normal garden soil is not enough. We need to add a lot of nutrients like organic compost, so that that plant is not only getting nitrogen to produce the leaves, but it is also getting phosphorus and potassium for new growth and a lot of flowers. After the soil is taken care of, the next concern is water. Whenever we repot, we definitely water our plants. That is a good thing to do, but we have to make sure that when we are watering the chrysanthemum plant, we are putting the water straight in the soil. I would not recommend watering the flowers or the leaves, because if we do that, especially if it's a little low temperature at your place, high chance that this plant will get a lot of fungal attack. And even if it is a hot day, watering the flowers and leaves can be avoided and we can just water the soil. Whenever we water our chrysanthemum plant, we have to make sure that the plant is really thirsty and really needs water, because if we overwater this plant by any chance, what you will see is that the leaves will start turning yellow and the plant will fall sick, because this plant doesn't like water being held around it. That is why we need a well-drained soil. So what we have to make sure is we just put our finger deep in, which is the golden rule for checking the soil, if it's moist or not, or you can use your soil meter as well, the moisture meter. So if the soil is, I would say, towards the dry side, not very wet, towards the dry side, only then you have to water. This plant blooms a lot in autumn and in early spring. So what you can do is, based on the temperature at your place, like in Australia right now it's very cold, so I am watering my plant literally like once in a week. But if your place, if it's very hot, you have to keep on checking the plant daily and you have to water it, because if you even keep it dry for a longer time, it will again die. So you have to have that balance of water. Only water if your plant needs it. Also, if you have planted this plant in ground or even in the pot, I would highly recommend to do some mulching for this plant, because again the roots are a little sensitive. So if we do a mulching of 3 to 4 layers using anything like straws or dry leaves or any dry organic product, even wood pieces are fine. If you make a layer of 3 to 4 inches, we know what mulching does. Simple reason that if it's hot at your place, it will keep the root moist, because when you add water, this water will not evaporate easily, so it keeps the root moist. It helps the plant to kind of stay cool. And the other reason, if it's winter at your place, then obviously it will not let that frost layer to be formed on the soil, which again keeps the roots of this plant a bit warmer. So mulching will definitely help. If you want to do, you can go for mulching as well. The next concern is, when should I add fertilizer and how much should I add fertilizer? Now what I would suggest is, when you are repotting this plant or when you are planting this plant, that time is the best time to give it a lot of fertilizer so that it gets that strength to grow and produce a lot of flowers. But this plant loves blooming a lot in autumn and early spring. So just before this time in your country, wherever you live, you have to make sure that you give it a lot of organic compost, removing the top 1 inch or 2 inch of soil. You can just give it a lot of fresh compost and that should be enough. So I would say maximum 3 times in a year is more than enough for this plant to bloom. As you can see my plant on your screen, every single floret, every single petal of this plant is so fresh, and I do not give it a lot of fertilizer. The last time I gave fertilizer was, I think, a month or maybe 1.5 months ago, and after that I haven't given it, and it just keeps on blooming and blooming, and the look this gives to your garden is just impeccable. The next concern is, where should I keep my pot, or where should I plant this plant so that it gets the correct amount of sun. Now we have to make sure that this plant doesn't require the same amount of sun throughout the year. So planting this plant in pot would be a little better idea, because you can just shift your pot whenever you want. So what I would recommend is, if it is winter at your place, keeping it in full sun is definitely a good idea. But if it is hot at your place and the temperature is a bit harsh, then please make sure that chrysanthemum is only getting the morning sun of 4-5 hours, and it is definitely not getting the afternoon sun. The next thing that we need to make sure about chrysanthemum is, they love pruning. They love being pruned. So whenever you see any dead leaf, immediately you need to prune it. Whenever you see that a flower has done its life, is about to die now, what you can do is, that stem on which you have that flower, just go 2 inch below the flower and you can just snip it off from there. What this does is, this encourages a lot of new growth in the plant, and the blooming speed and the amount of blooming also increases. Now there is a point in a year when you will see that chrysanthemum flowers have stopped blooming and there is no real new growth or new blooming coming up. At this time what you need to do is, just chop off your plant. Just make sure that you just have like a 2-3 inch of plant left, all the branches like 2 or 3 inch maximum. The remaining top part you can just chop it off, and stop giving it a lot of water, because now that there are no flowers and there is no real activity happening in your plant, it doesn't require a lot of water. So reduce the amount of water that you're giving it to half, I would say, and just chop it off. What this will do is, when the real time of blooming and giving the new growth will come, this plant will just shoot up and it will just go back to its original way. I think I've pretty much covered everything about chrysanthemums. They are very easy to keep plants and they give a very good look to your garden, very colorful. You have a lot of varieties available. Do bring them in your gardens, plant them, and they will just make you happy. And if you have any concerns or questions regarding chrysanthemum, you can always post a question in the comment section below. And if you feel that I just forgot to cover anything, you can always ask that in the comment section. I hope you liked this video. If you did like this video, do hit the like button, and if you're new to this channel, do hit the subscribe button so that you're part of M&MM Plant family. See you for now. Bye bye.